Welcome to ibbusinessandmanagement.com. I'm Mr. Burton, and today we are looking at topic 2.2 Organisational Structure. Organisational Structure being the second topic in our Human Resources unit. I'm glad to have you with me today. I hope you learned something new. Remember, everything you need to know, ibbusinessandmanagement.com, your one-stop place for everything IB Business and Management. Sit back, take some notes, learn something, please. Okay, organisational structure. A quick little intro video.
All publicly traded companies have the same basic corporate structure. Let's look at Ed's Carpets. Ed's name is on the building, but his company is owned by shareholders. Ed holds stock in the company, so he is one of the shareholders. If all the shareholders try to manage the company, nothing gets done. Instead, they hire a management team to run the company for them. This team includes a Chief Executive Officer, CEO, a Chief Operations Officer, COO, and a Chief Finance Officer, CFO. Underneath these three, there are managers and employees who make sure the carpets are being made and delivered every day. The management team can't report to every shareholder, so a company board of directors is created. Directors are elected to the board by the shareholders. A board is usually made up of a mix of shareholders and management. The board helps direct the company's management and protects the shareholders' investment in the company.
Okay, organisational structure. Now, if we are looking at sole proprietorship, organisational structure is not going to matter. The owner's going to run the business. They're going to be their own boss. They're going to delegate their own duties. They're going to be in charge of marketing, operations and finance, etc. A sole proprietorship, the owner is going to carry out all these organisational tasks. But larger businesses, which are most of the businesses that we do look at here in the IB Business Management course, there is a need for a more formal and organised structure. Helps the business to function more efficiently, as we can determine who's accountable to whom and who's responsible for what sort of task. Here we are, organisational structure. We're examining the ways that business organise their human resources, their people. We're going to be talking about formal and organised structures, nothing informal. And here's an example of an organisational structure chart. You'll see a president at the top, reporting to the president, a vice president, software manager and design manager. And each of these three people in turn will have people whom they delegate responsibilities and who report to them. So if we have a look at Tina King, the design manager, she reports directly to Doug William, the president, and beneath her in the hierarchy, you'll become familiar with these terms in a minute, below her in the hierarchy we have Justin Mayer, chief designer, and Justin Mayer is responsible for Kim Olsen, designer, and Kim Reynolds, another designer. Okay. So organisational structure, we're looking at who's accountable to whom, who has responsibility for which jobs. And these organisational structure charts are a key focus of this unit. Now, we've really touched on this. An organisational chart, organisational structure, formalised, helps to determine accountability, and we define that as being illustrating who is held responsible for the performance of what job, and responsibility shows who is in charge of whom. Human resources, HR, in an organisation. We have got a typical structure of human resources in any medium to large organisation. At the top we have the CEO. As we saw in the video, shareholders elect a board of directors. Management reports to the board of directors. The board of directors are setting the big strategy of the firm. Management are those individuals who are responsible for seeing those objectives being carried out. Below management, we have supervisors and team leaders, and below them other employees. So the managing director, the CEO, along with the board of directors, these are the people who are ultimately responsible for running the company. They report to the shareholders at the annual general meeting. Now the CEO also acts as a figurehead. You can think of people like Richard Branson here, Warren Buffett. They lead the team of directors, come up with the organisational objectives in conjunction with the board of directors, communicate with directors, problems, decisions, and these are the people that are responsible for corporate strategy, coming up with it, devising it, and overseeing the implementation of that strategy. Board of directors, responsible for running of the business. And typically, especially with larger boards, larger companies, each director may oversee a particular key area of the business. So sitting on the board, you'll have a marketing director, a finance director, operations director. Executive directors work full-time at the organisation and non-executive directors don't. They're brought in, they'll have expertise, networks of people that they know, and they'll have an area of expertise. The board's going to be involved with target setting, the long-term plans of the business. Hopefully there will be some sort of long-term focus for the business. Sometimes, and especially in today's day and age, shareholders are very interested in quarterly reporting, so perhaps in today's business world, those long-term plans and goals can fall by the wayside if the board of directors is too focused on meeting those profit targets, those quarterly profit targets. But they shouldn't be involved, and they should be involved with long-term planning and long-term strategies. Now these people are also going to establish the policies and codes of practice, and they're going to monitor and control, oversee what's going on within the organisation. Reporting to the board of directors, we have management. They're responsible for a team of people and probably certain tasks as well. Management, we think day-to-day decision making, so not necessarily that long-term focus, day-to-day decision making, and ensuring the implementation of the organisation's policies. Board of directors, in conjunction with the CEO, will set the strategy. The management is responsible for the day-to-day running of the organisation to ensure that those strategies are being implemented. Supervisors and team leaders is the next layer down. These can be thought of as junior managers. Now they're going to carry out some, but not necessarily all, of the duties of a senior management. Operational decisions, and these are the people who typically have direct contact with the workforce they're responsible for. And last but certainly not least, we have other employees. Not least because these people are very, very important. They form the bulk of the company's workforce. These are the people that do what the company needs done. So they're going to work to carry out duties within their team or department. They're working to achieve targets set by their team leader or management. They're only effectively responsible for decisions specifically related to their job role. They're not typically involved in strategies or that higher picture stuff. And they provide support and assistance to other people within the organisation as well. Organisational charts, a key topic within this 2.2 topic. Right at the top we have the CEO. The CEO is typically responsible for several directors, as we saw before, so perhaps sitting on the board, most often sitting on the board actually. So we can work two ways here. We can work top to bottom, or we can work bottom up. Typically I like to look at an organisation, a formal organisational structure chart from the top, and see the channels of communication down the different hierarchies. We call it the chain of command. Chain of command is a term we will get to soon. So here we've got the marketing director responsible for the marketing manager. That'll be quite a senior position, and the marketing manager will be in charge of the marketing department, where the bulk of the employees in the marketing realm of the business lie. Production director, another key role. Operations manager will be in charge of those in the quality control department as well as the production staff. And in this organisation, they're also looking after security and security staff. Now those are two separate branches of the organisation. So security doesn't really have anything to do with quality control. The only thing that they've got in common, these two branches, are that they are overseen by the production director. So if security fails, the production director is held responsible. If quality control fails, again, the production director is held responsible. Finance, controlled by the finance director, very important position. The finance manager will oversee all those accounts and finance staff within the organisation. The human resources director, there'll be a senior manager there overseeing the human resources side of the business, and that senior manager, she or he, will be supervising, managing all the human resources staff within the organisation. So what does this chart show? 4 important features which you need to be able to pick out when you look at any organisational chart. So the different functional departments, e.g. marketing, production, finance and human resources in the background example here, the chain of command, the span of control and the official channels of communication. What the heck are these, Mr. Burden? I hear yourself ask. Let's go through each in turn. Okay, we have touched on the different functional departments. In this organisation we've got marketing, production, finance and human resources. There may be other functional departments depending on what the organisation does and again how it's structured and who are employed. So there could well be a sales director, a sales department responsible for the management of sales staff. There could be a research and development branch which is separate from production. Every organisation has the opportunity to structure their organisational charts differently. So functional departments, you can pick those out quite easily. Chain of command shows the various positions of authority, especially who has direct control over whom. From the bottom going up, production staff report to the operations manager, quality control reports to the operations manager, the operations manager reports to the production director, who in turn reports to the CEO. Whew. Production director, the chain of command, let's say she's got an important communication to pass down to the security staff. She will instruct the security director with the information, and then the security director will need to pass that information down lower in the rung, lower down in the hierarchy to the security staff. So the various positions of authority, who has direct control over whom. The marketing manager has control over the marketing department, the marketing director has control over the marketing manager, the CEO has control over the marketing director. Chain of command. Span of control measures the number of staff directly accountable to a single line manager. Now we take a line, up or down, a single line manager. Marketing director, marketing manager. Production director, his or her span of control is 2. They are giving orders, making sure that the operations manager is doing what he or she should be doing, and also at the same time making sure that the security director knows what's going on, knows what needs to be done, and is monitoring the performance of both of these individuals. The span of control measures the number of staff directly accountable, not all the way down the chain, but just directly beneath the next level of the hierarchy. And the official channels of communication, these are the route in that messages are communicated within the organisation. So typically the CEO, in conjunction with the board of directors, comes up with some sort of strategy, some sort of target, some sort of push for a certain department. Let's say it's in regards to something to do with production, maybe some sort of Kaizen or lean management target has been revised, has been reduced. The information will be fed to the production director, who then needs to feed it down to the next layer of the hierarchy, who then has responsibility of feeding it down the chain. Channels of communication, the route that messages are communicated within the organisation. Very clear, made very clear with the formal organisational structure. And I've mentioned the term hierarchy a little bit, and the organisation's chart shows how many levels of hierarchy are within a business. With this particular organisation, we have 5 levels of hierarchy, and that's very easy. We just count down the number of levels in the organisational chart to determine the number of levels in the hierarchy. Now we saw in the previous example, the previous organisational structure for that particular company. The organisation was structured according to functions, so production, human resources, finance, marketing, etc. But that doesn't necessarily have to be the case. We can organise our structures by product, especially when there are quite a lot of different products and quite differentiated. So Nissan and Renault, same company, same organisation, but definitely someone would head up the Nissan division and somebody would be heading up the Renault division, with chains coming and different levels of hierarchy within each of those departments. We can organise a business by the process, the different functions, and we've had a look at this already. And we can also organise by geography as well. Quite often multinational companies are going to be organised around different regions or different countries. So there'll be somebody that heads up the Indian division of Coca-Cola, and within the Indian division there'll be more components of the organisational structure within that geographic location. So here's an example. We have got the US and we've got the European operational divisions. A vice president in charge of both, and within those different geographical regions then we've got an organisation by function. So geography we say is primary, and a function is secondary to these two locations. Your first question for 2.2. Delegation is a very important concept in this topic. Who is responsible for the passing of authority to a person lower down the organisational structure? So who is below? Who is then instructed to do a job? So for example, as a business grows, managers are going to need to relinquish some of their roles and responsibilities. They will not be able to effectively control all aspects of the business. It just gets too large. They need to let other people take responsibility. And this passing on of control and authority is what we term delegation. It involves the line manager entrusting and empowering their staff to complete a task or project, and also holding them accountable for their actions. The responsibility still remains with the line manager, although the actual work is done by the authorised person. So 2 key points there. Accountable. If you delegate someone, then they are held accountable for their action, but responsibility when someone delegates something still remains with the line manager. They will not be able to pass the buck and say, this didn't get done because person Y failed to do it. The manager needs to take responsibility if that work is not done to a high standard by the authorised person. And many people argue that the art of effective delegation is one of the most important skills of managers. It is really, really, really important. They cannot and should not, given time and other constraints, deal with every single matter themselves. They can't do it. Effective delegation has major benefits for both managers and employees. Now, 2 key ones we've noted here. The manager saves time and they can focus their time on more strategic issues. And it helps to motivate and develop employees who feel trusted and that their talents are recognised. It's not about saving money. It's not about saving money. Can we make that clear? It's about saving time to focus on more important strategic issues. And it's really, really good for employees as well in terms of their motivation. They feel they've got some responsibility. They feel they've got some development within their job. They feel trusted and that their talents are recognised. It's win-win if it's done right and you select the right person to delegate to. But if it's not done right, we forget about implementing our SMART goals. Remember SMART goals? Specific, measurable, agreed, realistic, time-bound. If it's not done right, the implementation is not effective. Confusion and inadequacy may demotivate staff, and you lose those brilliant motivational tools that come with effective delegation. So an important little video there showing that delegation is a long run strategy. The people you delegate some sort of task or responsibility to are not necessarily going to get it right the first time. But if you work with them, develop their strengths, develop their experience within the particular delegated task, they're going to become more and more effective, and in the end save you a lot of time. Time, not money. It's not about saving money. Span of control. We can talk about wide and narrow spans of control. Let's focus on wide span. Here we've got a CEO, 2 assistants who share the span of control of 15 employees. Count them along the bottom, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. I couldn't fit them all on, but 15 employees are directly under the manager's control. We call it a wide span of control. There's less hierarchy, there are fewer layers within the organization, as opposed to a narrow span of control, which is going to have quite a lot of layers going down. Just like this. So here we've got a narrow span of control. We've got a whole lot more layers involved with this organization. Narrow span of control, there are fewer subordinates accountable to a manager. We saw before that there were 15 employees directly responsible to one manager. Here, if we look at this person on the left, this manager on the left, they have only got 2 people that are directly responsible to them. And below that, we have got more layers of the hierarchy. So typically, and we went over this previously, typically the more narrow the span of control, the more levels within the hierarchy. And we tend to end up with tall hierarchical structures. So between the bottom of the pyramid and the top of the pyramid, the CEO and the workers, there are a whole lot of different people that messages need to get communicated through. Tall hierarchical structures. Fewer subordinates. These arise because fewer subordinates are being held accountable to a particular manager. Definitely advantages and disadvantages of each. Depends on the organisation, depends on what they do, it depends how many staff they've got. And if you have a look in the Hong textbook, page 209 to 211, we've got the advantages and the disadvantages of each. And you've got a little activity here where you need to find the advantages of the narrow span of control, the advantages of having a wide span of control, and the disadvantages of each of these as well. So page 209 through to 211. And once you finish that, you've got your second question, question 2.2.2, and that's on page 212. And very important that you do go through and carry out this task, because frequently, a question about organisational structure is going to ask you, what's the advantages for this organisation having a narrow span of control? What are the disadvantages? And delayering, really simply, is taking out some of those levels of the hierarchy, sometimes called flattening the organisational structure. Just reducing the number of layers between management and the workers below below that layer of management, widening the span of control. Why is it done? You can decrease the cost by removing levels of management. Remember, senior managers are very, very, very expensive people to hire. If you can get rid of some of those managers and still effectively control and run the organisation, you've saved the organisation a lot of money in salary costs foregone. One of the major advantages of delayering as well is that improvement in the speed of communication. To take out the different levels of hierarchy, a communication from top to bottom, from bottom to top, runs a lot faster. Less levels, less people for the message to run through. And really importantly, we get that delegation coming through. We're making people responsible, encouraging them to take responsibility, and there are advantages in terms of motivation which flow from this. And of course there are disadvantages as well. We perhaps get anxiety and insecurity coming through, overstretching employees. We may need to employ flexible working practices to get things like this in place. And if we're doing this, we need to regularly upgrade employees' skills. So this comes as a cost to the business. And perhaps decision making takes longer. It typically will take longer actually, because the managers have larger teams within the delayered organisation. Instead of having two people coming to an agreement, have to take into account the views and opinions and ideas of much larger teams. Couple more questions for you. One on page 213 and 214. Yes, indeed, they are coming thick and fast today.